So we're moving directly on from Benedict to Sarah Marquis, who is an in-person presenter speaking about what is optimized agriculture. I will hand over to you, Sarah.
This is my first in-person presentation in a very long time, so bear with me.
It should work. Do you want to tap your?
Oh.
Yes. So maybe move it out a little bit more. I don't want to dive into it.
There you go. I see. Okay. Good.
Can you say something?
Happy to be here. Yes. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And press here is the button
To make it go. Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Marquis. And before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Masha and to Kelly for setting up this really interdisciplinary creative space. I'm grateful that there are spaces like this, and I'm really happy to be here. So just to introduce myself, I'm a PhD student here at the University of Ottawa. My research is around digital agriculture and its social, economic, political implications, of which there are many, and we'll get into those. So I'll be talking today about the logic of optimization in agriculture and a bit of my research in that area. So before we get started, I just want to run through the outline of the presentation. I'll be talking a little bit about the context in which I'm talking about. So the idea of the digital revolution in agriculture. And after that, I want to spend some time unpacking the theoretical frameworks that I'm using to think through what I'm working on. And then we'll get to kind of research questions and methods and all that fun stuff, preliminary findings. And then I'll discuss the findings in the research in the context of the theoretical frameworks, and then followed by conclusions and next steps. But yeah, it is a very early project, so any feedback is welcome. Okay, so essentially today I'll be talking about climate smart agriculture, which is also called digital agriculture, precision agriculture, smart farming, and just the socio-technical imaginary of this automated farming environment, one in which the digital tools and technologies are increasingly being used to track crop and livestock variables such as yields, soil health, rainfall, down to a microclimate level. And all environmental parameters on this farm of the future are being tracked and everything is being monitored. And these are stills from a John Deere advertising campaign, which I use in most of my presentations. But so John Deere, as many of you probably know, is a massive agricultural machinery corporation. And so this is how the future of farming is being kind of advertised. The farmer is making decisions remotely from inside of his home, weather data, plant health data, irrigation data, and GPS, which is used to steer the tractor, is all of it available through the same app. And what is important to understand here is that not only is the software collecting all of this data, but it's also analyzing it and giving the farmer recommendations and prescriptions and encouraging the farmer to make specific decisions regarding pesticides and seeds. And so these decisions are all supposedly designed to optimize productivity, on-farm profit, and ostensibly sustainability. Okay, so the socio-technical imaginary of smart farming or the automatic farm is very pervasive in popular media. As you can see here, some headlines from the Globe and Mail talking about the automatic farm. Business Insider has one, seed by seed, acre by acre, big data is taking over the farm, which sounds a bit ominous. But New York Times has one, a growing presence on the farm, robots. And then Wired is talking about John Deere doubling down on Silicon Valley and robots. And it's kind of talking about the way that John Deere is repositioning itself as a technology company. Oops. And I also, this is just a side story. I have a friend who was just hired by John Deere to work as a software developer. He's relocating to the Bay Area, and he had to sign multiple NDAs, which is a bit tragic to me because I want to know everything about his experience working there. Maybe I'll get some secrets out of him. But anyways, these headlines are just so interesting to me because they're clearly meant to be so provocative. And they don't expect their audience to be considering smartness outside of the city, which we've been talking about smart cities. And I know that that's not exactly the topic, but it's very interesting to me, this kind of division between the smart city and everything outside of the city, and how smartness operates in both spaces. Okay. So I do want to talk about the smart farm in the context of Halpern's smartness mandate. So she says here, smartness is predicated on an imaginary of crisis. This is to be managed through a massive increase in sensing devices, which in turn purportedly enable self-organization and constant self-modulating and self-updating systems. So the crisis in this context, in the context of the smart farm, there are a few, but mostly it's the food crisis and the climate crisis. And then, talking about the logic of optimization, Halpern states that the key operation of smartness is optimization. So the pursuit of the best, the fastest route between 2 points, the most reliable prediction of a product a consumer will like, the least expenditure of energy in a home, the lower risk and highest return in a financial portfolio. This is what justifies the term smartness. And so this also brought me to a special issue by McKelvey and Neves. And in this special issue, it's been really important for my research. But I'm also noticing kind of a gap between critical data studies, literature, media and communication literature. When they talk about datafication and optimization, they're usually talking about things like personal data, the quantified self, what optimization is doing to us socially. And I really want to stress that this mandate is not just happening in social environments, and it's not just happening in the city, it's also reordering industrial environments, manufacturing environments, and agricultural environments. So the same question can be asked of these environments: what is actually being optimized on the farm? Who is it being optimized for? And one of the biggest questions is just like, who is being harmed by this process of optimization? And this also brought me down like a philosophical rabbit hole to Jacques Ellul, and he has a concept of technique. And in his words, technique is the totality of methods rationally arrived at and having absolute efficiency. So technique is essentially an ordering principle that prioritizes efficiency above all else. And so I think one of the most important ideas here is that technique is not actually doesn't actually work to make the environment more hospitable to humans. And also, once it begins, it's very difficult to stop. And so, as McKelvey and Neves say, the ends of optimization are without end. So nothing actually gets to the point of being optimal. And so it never stops. So this brings me to my research questions. So with all of these kind of like theoretical ideas in mind, I just want to answer the following question. So how do stakeholders in Eastern Canadian farmers, digital agriculture innovators, funding entities perceive the present and future capacity for digital agriculture, particularly artificially intelligent digital agriculture technologies, to optimize agricultural processes? And what implications do these perceptions have for potential transitions to sustainable food systems? So into the nitty-gritty methods. I'm essentially in the scoping phase of my research. I haven't begun true field work yet, but I'm doing a discourse analysis from precision ag trade shows, from online content, online webinars, and there have been a lot in the last 2 years, naturally. So they're quite accessible to me. And then my future research will entail farm visits, ag tech company visits. I kind of want to design a way to do ethnography at an ag tech startup. I think that would be very cool. And exploring pathways of venture capital. So questioning what motivates certain investments and what logics of optimization underlie those investments and those firms that are being invested in. And just these are some preliminary findings from trade shows and from content from websites. And so this is a quote from an ag tech industry stakeholder. I think he was representing an autonomous farm machinery company. And he was saying, we also know that today there's incredible pressures that are happening globally. Food prices are rising. We've had some droughts in North America this year and the year before. They've really reduced crop outputs. So we're vulnerable, and agriculture has to find a way to be as efficient and productive as possible with every acre. And we see that enabled through technology. There's a lot more capacity to deal with productivity constraints within equipment and ensure that we're producing as much food as possible in the year that we're given. And it's also speaking to this idea of crisis that Halpern talks about, that smartness is a response to crisis, but not necessarily a solution to it. And then we have, this is from the website from Decisive Farming, which is a farm management software. So it says sustainable agriculture starts with managing social, environmental, and financial aspects equally and in balance. Decisive Farming supports this approach by offering services to farms that increase crop production and help manage costs, resulting in a typical increase in yields and profits by 10%. The impact is also improved environmental performance by better soil nutrient management and reduced CO2 emissions. So this really puts into perspective this idea of optimization, and that optimization will inevitably lead to sustainability. However, when you start to pick apart that logic, the cracks in it become quite clear. And as many scholars have talked about, including Kelly Bronson, who's right here, who's my supervisor, and other social scientists, really question this claim to sustainability, this idea that just because you optimize profitability, then sustainability will inevitably follow. And so this kind of is a simplification of the ideas, but it's talking about just like how the conflation of the optimal and the productive leads to the conflation of the optimal and the profitable, which then leads to the conflation of the optimal and the sustainable. But when you really pick that apart, there are, again, flaws in this flow of logic. And then that also brings us to the question of who is being left behind in this process. So there's a growing scholarship about the idea that certain farms are necessary in the transition to sustainable food systems, farms like regenerative farms, biointensive farms, agroecological farms, and or in some cases organic farms that are not conducive to dominant logics of optimization. And even just think about the imperative of farm management softwares to optimize things like pesticides and herbicides. They are clearly designed for farms that use pesticides and herbicides. They're not really designed for farms that don't. And the logic of optimization's definition of sustainability is actually quite limited. And also, like, you know, it leads us to the question of like, what if we were to optimize things like biodiversity? Would we even need digital technologies to do that? So yeah, there's a lot of questions that I'm thinking about. And this brings me to my next steps, my conclusions and next steps. So clearly this is a work in progress. And if there's any feedback, I would love to hear it. And I really want this project to interrogate farmers' perceptions. So how do logics of optimization impact them? And I want to map the funding pathways and question what kind of logics of optimization underlie technologies that are currently being funded. And really what I really want to do is ask what harms can optimization and this imperative of optimization cause. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to the question and answer period.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was fascinating and a great way to localize smartification in a site that isn't the city.